there's a calendar change, okay? So we're going to talk about the calendar. And so in Exodus 12:2, he said in the month when they were preparing for the Passover, he said, this is going to be the beginning of months for you, which means it wasn't before. So here's what happened. There was a 6-month shift. In other words, the first month became the 7th, which means the 7th became the 1st. The 2nd became the 8th, and so on, okay? 6-month shift in the calendar. Before Exodus 12:2, before they're in Egypt with the first Passover, you can decode different things based upon that. And so we'll look at that. If you go to Genesis 8, it says that in the ark, this is after Noah's flood, and it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and the 150 days where the water abated, all that. It says the ark rested in the 7th month on the 17th day of the month upon the mountains of Ararat. Interesting. So it's the 7th month, okay? 17th day. So is that significant at all?
Yeah.
Now, why would that day be significant? Well, if you know the feast, and I should make probably a little timeline here, the feast. Okay, here's the first month, and then we'll say that's the 3rd. Well, I like the months are in between there. And this is the 7th month, okay? In the first month, there's 3 Jewish feasts, right? First one is Passover, and then after that is unleavened bread. First fruits. Okay, good. First fruits. And then 50 days after first fruits.
Pentecost.
Yes.
Pentecost,
which ends up in the 3rd month. If you look at this, what it basically means, as you put all this together, he was in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, and then you have first fruits. He was resurrected on the 1st month, which day? 17th day.
Wow.
In other words, when the ark rested on Ararat, it was the 1st month, 17th day. So the same day that Jesus was resurrected is the same day that the ark rested on Ararat. So there's would you say there's a typology in there?
Yes.
Okay, and the ark, according to Genesis, okay, it was pitched within and without, on the inside and on the outside. You know what that word for pitched is? It's kafar, which means covering, and is elsewhere translated as atonement. So the ark had atonement on the inside and on the outside, and it got people safely through the flood. It's a type of Jesus getting the Jews safely through the flood during the tribulation. What we see here, it finally comes to rest after the flood waters. Okay? Then I saw something else. All this typology is incredible. In Genesis 8:13. There's even a type of the rapture in there. We see the Jews going through the flood, and it even has a type of the rapture. It says this, and it came to pass in the 601st year, that would be of Noah's life, because he was 600 years old when he got on the ark. Okay? In the 1st month, in the 1st of the month, 1st day, 1st month. Now what would that be? So if you go to the 7th month, 1st day, anybody know what Jewish feast that is? The Feast of Trumpets. So what happens? It says the waters are dried up from off the earth. What Jesus saying in John 7:38? He that believeth in me, as the scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living waters. Now that water is going to be lifted up off that earth. And what day does it happen on? Feast of Trumpets. It's the rapture. Feast of Trumpets, the waters are lifted up off the earth. They're raptured. They go up and, from the earth. It's the rapture. Kind of neat. Encoded way back in the book of Genesis, by the dates, if you understand them, is the resurrection day with the ark, which is the type of Jesus, coming to rest after the flood of judgment, and also the rapture.
So here's what you're saying. You're saying that the Jews had a calendar, and then Jesus or God, at the first Passover,
Yes.
He changed their calendar.
Yes. Why is Feast of Trumpets Rosh Hashanah then, which is known as the New Year's? Why? Because when does Rosh Hashanah occur? Our Feast of Trumpets? 7th month, first day, right? Right here. What was it before the change?
First month.
Yes. First month, first day. What is the first month, first day? The beginning. That's why the Jews say that's New Year's, and why they say that's the birthday of the earth. Because, I know, I wish I could explain things better, but somebody kind of understand, right? And somebody who kind of sees that could maybe tone in and explain that. So there's a calendar change. A 6-month switch. Passover, which was in the 7th month, God says, well, now this is going to be the beginning of months for you. So that becomes the first month. Okay? Calendar change.
So
Now-
it would have been New Year's at that time? On the 7th?
Yes. Yes. So what we see now is the 7th month, first day, and the fall feast. That originally was the first month, first day, all the way back to creation, which is why that might be day 1, the birthday of the earth. Again, that's Rosh Hashanah, literally head of the year, or the New Year's, to the Jews people, okay? All right. So just a little exercise in that. Boy, just wait until we start getting into the feast. We're on a solar calendar. They were on a lunar, but then all the ancient calendars originally, when you go back in time, they all had what? How many days in the year? All the ancient ones.
360.
They all had 360. Were they all wrong? Remember, they're agrarian cultures. They have to go by the calendar, right? No, they weren't wrong. They were right. 360 days in a year. And then, around 701 BC, it seemed like the calendars started to change. Because if they were off, they would have to change it, right?
They changed because of Joshua. The day it stood still? No?
That's one theory.
Oh.
And it could be then. Another theory is it was during the time of King Hezekiah.
Oh.
When
Yeah,
he
that's
said,
right.
ask a sign from the Lord.
That's right.
He said, well, do you want the shadow and the stairwell to go back 10 steps or forward 10 steps? He goes, well, it's going to go forward 10 steps. I could have this backwards. He goes, make it go back.
Yeah, he did.
And then that could have been the change. Because after that, it seemed like all the calendars went to a 365 and quarter day year.
Yeah.
Which they had to, because if they were off originally in a decade, you'd be off 2 months. And if you're planting, you'd be planting in winter. You can't do that. So in 701 BC, it changed. So it was a 360-day year originally. Today, what the Jews have is sounds kind of technical, a solar calendar that's adjusted lunarly. It's a solar calendar that's adjusted by the moon. What does that mean? It means they're on a 19-year cycle. I'll figure out, I need to probably explain that a few times. I'll explain it here. 19-year cycle. It was by a rabbi first came up with this way back when, okay? And because they know if they go by the 365-day year, then pretty soon you're celebrating Passover on a new moon, not a full moon. You can't do that. You can't just have one day of the year like April 2nd or something for Passover. You can't. It's going to be off. And so they have a 19-year cycle where they, I think even at one point they add a month into the calendar. And then they adjust the days, and sometimes certain months have certain, more days. And it goes on, and they adjust it like every about 2.5 years. Okay, or 2 to 3 years, let's just say. In that 19-year cycle, then they start it over. And that keeps everything in sync with the moon.